Thank you for asking how I am, and you, because
I'm good too.
you know the last time we did this back and forth was full on pandemic, and neither one of us could presume that we would get through this unscathed. How did you do?
Yeah, I feel like I'm the last man standing a little bit. How about you?
Well, it finally found me when I
Uh,
least expected it, but um, I had four shots and I was good to go. I was okay.
yeah, yeah,
It was just an
no,
annoying winter cold.
yeah, exactly. And I mean, I feel like I am definitely tempting the fates every time that I go out on tour. I'm like, it's just a matter of time, isn't it? But you try to do everything you can, but at the end of the day, it can get you no matter what you do.
And then we have grandkids involved. So, and the last thing you want to be doing is passing it on to them. So you have to just, okay. So
Yeah.
let's talk and then talk. um, uh, I'm Terry David Mulligan, and this is Mulligan Stew on the CKUA radio network and the Mulligan Stew podcast. And I have Tami Neilson. I was going to say on the phone, but she's not. She's on Zoom. It's 10 o'clock in the morning in Auckland.
It is. Good morning.
What time do you normally get up?
Oh, I have two kids. So
Okay.
this morning it was 4 a.m. One of them came in, had a bad dream. So, it depends. It can be anywhere from 4 a.m. to kind of 6:30 on a weekday.
How much of your kid is still in you?
I would say that, well, first of all, I'd say not enough because I think that's a goal to strive to keep that joy and that wonder and curiosity. My dad really retained that his whole life. And I really admire that now as an adult and as a parent. So keeping that kind of sense of wonder and curiosity and silliness and joy. I like to think that I retain a lot of it, but it's a goal that I'm always striving for to do more.
Okay, I just want to let you know and let the audience know it is Wednesday, the 27th,
Oh
something.
gosh, it's the 29th here, so it's the
Okay,
28th
28th.
there.
It says 28th. Okay, here's the deal. Here's the deal. The CKUA Top 30 album chart came out today, and you are number one.
Get out of town.
You are the number one album, number one on the CKUA province wide in Alberta and around the world on the app. You're number one.
Oh my goodness. Alberta, I've
Kingmaker.
always loved you. I've always loved you. My first boyfriend was from Alberta.
I didn't know.
Yeah. When I was 16, I dated a cowboy from Clive, which is like just a tiny little village outside of Lacombe. And I'm still very good friends with him and his family. And yeah, Alberta has a special place in my heart.
You could have you could have been an Alberta girl, except
I could have. But he has a beautiful wife and 5 billion children. So
okay. Um, it's been, let's say it's been 2 years since you and I have talked. The world has changed
Mm.
uh, in large ways, and it's still changing literally every day when we go look get our news fix. How much have you changed, do you think?
Oh man. I think that I've definitely uh I think that the things like this make you realize you're faced with your mortality, and you realize you don't have a lot of time
Yeah.
to take on board the opinions of other people and worry about the judgments and people, kind of dictating the way that you live. And so I think that that's been a huge change for me is um, realizing that, I read something the other day that said, if you wouldn't take advice from someone, why would you take their criticism? A stranger, and I'm not talking about my loved ones and people in my life
Sure.
that love and care about me, but you know, for those people who don't have any investment in your life or care about you, why would you care about their opinion and take it on as something to live your life by? So that's definitely been something.
Actually, beyond just politics on this in this part of the world, COVID seemed to break families apart in that some said yes, I'll go get vaxxed, and others said no, I want nothing to do with it, and it ruined families.
Mm-hmm.
Damage,
Absolutely.
right?
Yes, yes. And I often say, because I definitely have family members who are, you know, we're in that same boat. And, you know, we have the statistics of how many lives have been lost, how many people have been sick. We don't have the statistics of how many relationships have died,
Yeah.
or, you know, the grief and the suffering that causes in people, the trauma of broken relationships. That's like a whole other pandemic.
I ask you this simply because it informs you, the artist, and you, the songwriter, as you went into Kingmaker. It all was fodder for your subconscious and your conscious. For example, you talk about grief, and you end up doing a duet with Willie Nelson, driven by grief. Can you just fill us in?
Yeah, that song was one that I wrote with a friend of mine, Delaney Davidson, and he had recently lost his father as well. And we're kind of similar ages, and we were just having a discussion about how much you miss them, and it never ever changes. My dad's been gone for 7 years, his only a couple. But while it can be something that you live with and it's less raw, the missing never goes, and the grief never goes, because the love never goes. And grief is only unexpressed love that you're not able to give to them anymore and share with them anymore. And so we wrote this song about missing our dads. And when I went into recorded, I thought, you know, because the first verse is me singing to my dad, and then the second verse is him singing to me. And I thought, who on earth could be the voice of my dad? Never in a million years did I dream big enough that it would ever be Willie Nelson.
But he had also lost someone in his family at the same time.
Yes, well, we recorded the song, and it was coming out. And originally, the way that we connected was I was supposed to go to his ranch to perform with him at Luck Reunion, which is a festival that happens in March 2020. And of course, it all fell apart. And so 2 years later, I ended up just this past March finally getting to go to Texas. And of course, I was going in a very different position than if I had gone originally, having recorded a song with him and pulling up to his ranch. I was just talking today about my body just my hands wouldn't stop shaking. My tummy was just in knots. Driving up to his house for the first time to run through the song, because we were singing it at the festival together the next day. And I said to my brother, who was with me in the car, and we were both shaking, and I said, you know, no one tells you this. You can have these huge dreams, and one day, wouldn't it be amazing if I performed with Willie Nelson? But you don't think about the fact that your body can't keep up with your with your mind. Your body just like reacts and goes crazy. But the most kind of it really became a sacred song that week when I was flying to see him and perform with him. He lost his beloved sister, Bobby, who played piano for him for 4 or 5 decades in his band. She's the one that's on all these iconic albums like Stardust. And that's Bobby that you hear. And she's always been on stage with him. And I could relate to that, being from a family band, and my brother is in my band. And so it was incredibly special to pull up to his house with my brother, and the three of us run through this song together. And he had only just lost Bobby 2 days before.
Right.
And he said that took on a whole new meaning for him, that it kind of gave it a whole new depth.
Well, it shows in the recording. I mean, it does. It just, it's special. You can just, your ears tell you, your heart tells you, your gut tells you. And you talked about your dad and missing your dad. And I love the fact that you went looking for songs that he may have written or recordings he may have left you or not. And maybe he didn't even intend to do it. It was just a collection set aside in a box somewhere. We find those things. So you found a song called, was it called I Can Forget?
No, it was just music, a little snippet of music and melody. Yeah, my mom was going through their storage, found this box of old demo tapes, his work tapes, and my brother painstakingly, spent 5 hours or more, 5 days probably, listening to all these tapes and found this little snippet of music and melody, and he recorded it on his phone and sent it to me. And he said, I think this is a bit of you. And the really special thing about this little recording, normally there's work tapes and you hear kind of a little bit of singing some melody, making up nonsense words and some music. But there was a point in the song where my dad stopped and went, oh, that's too high, because he was trying to hit these notes and his voice was cracking. He went, oh, kind of talking to himself. He said, oh, that's too high. Got to go the lower octave. And I burst out laughing and I said, that's because it's for me, Dad. And it was just amazing. That's when you lose someone, you lose everything that you shared together as well. And I never thought I'd get to co-write a song with my dad again. And that was just such a special moment. I cried and laughed at that moment. It felt like he was talking to me and I was having this conversation with him.
I bet it stayed with you after you left the room.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. We can't talk about them all, although I'll try to do that. The album was called Kingmaker. You needed a title song. You needed something to kick it off. It was like has been pointed out, like the opening of a film when you sit down on Saturday night and there's the screen and then there comes up. It's like a big Western, whatever. Kingmaker. And you take that approach to it as well. When you wrote it, did it sound like that in your head or did it become that song?
I remember clearly when it kind of came to me. I was making dinner and we were in lockdown and I was making dinner and I thought, I still need an opening song and I want it to feel like that. I want it to feel like that anticipation you feel when you hear, a movie start. And like when James Bond, it always opens with this fantastic song and singer and builds this anticipation for the story. And in my head, I could hear what I wanted. I knew I wanted it to be big and cinematic and strings. I definitely don't have the skill to write those arrangements. And I knew what I wanted, but didn't know how to articulate that part of it.
But what was the message that went with it?
That definitely was really clear to me that, all the songs I'd written for the album had this thread going through it of challenging and questioning the inequality for women in the world, and particularly in my personal experience for women in the music industry, and even boiled down even more, the country music industry. I had spent a lot of the pandemic writing this album, but also writing a show with a fellow Canadian. She's a professor of musicology at the University of Ottawa, who specializes in the data collection of gender and racial representation in country music radio. Her name's Dr. Jada Watson, and
it's fractional.
We wrote a song.
It's fractional, isn't it?
Yeah, like it's black and white. There's no. That's what I love about it, is people often think that feminism or talking about equality or inequality is political, and it's like, no, this is just factual. This is just statistics in black and white. You can see the discrimination and the oppression of women and people of color in country music. And so we wrote this song called the F word, songs of feminism in country music. And so I was doing that kind of alongside writing this album. And so it was very much at the forefront. And
Sure.
as you say, those things inform what comes out.
Tammy, did it spill over into King of Country Music?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. King of Country Music was, I don't know that I would have written that song without having worked on this show with Jada and kind of been diving into these statistics of country music radio.
Could the King of Country Music be the daughter, not the son?
Mm,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's interesting because people, some people see it as like me claiming to be the king of country music, but I'm posing it as a question. And it's meant to start conversations. What if women were given the same opportunities and the playing field was actually equal, instead of women only getting 10% of country music radio play in the year 2022?
Come on.
Right? It's insane. And so imagine if it was just equal. Imagine if it was 50-50. What would our musical landscape look like?
Now, part of that, Tammy, as you well know, part of that is it could be like the woman who's on mic and on radio could be another Tammy, but she would be a packaged Tammy. You know she's packaged. You know she's been shaped and produced, overproduced and overwritten, and it's phony. It's bogus. And so what you're saying is you're speaking up for all of them, but you're actually really talking to the ones, and you say it in the album, be the gun, be the hot, don't take any bullshit. Go for this, right? Right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that being a woman in the music industry, it's just being a woman in the music industry is almost a form of protest. You're taking up space where you're not really wanted.
Cause mama's talking.
That's right. That song, Mama's Talking, was actually, it was Annie, Willie's wife, who said to me, we were talking about Margot Price, who I love,
Yeah.
and who is another really outspoken, strong female artist. And Annie said to me, oh, you've got to meet her. And I said, well, I actually kind of have. We were in the middle of a conversation backstage at a festival we were both playing, and we were just kind of starting to have a chat. And this man, this artist who I will not name, came and stood directly in front of me with his back to me, like I was invisible, right in the middle of our conversation, and started talking to her. And my brother was kind of standing off to the side, and I looked over at him and his jaw was just on the floor, like at the rudeness, And that would be, one thing if it was like, oh, he didn't realize. But he then did it to me again the next day with another artist that I was talking to. It was actually Amanda Shires I was chatting with, and he did it again. And same guy, same thing. And I was telling Annie about this, and she said, oh, you've got to write this. You got to write a song about this. Call it Excuse Me, I'm Speaking. And so, yeah, that ended up being Shh, Mama's Talking.
No, Kamala Harris, who of course is famous for that line, could end up being the president of the United States at some point. We don't know how it's going to play out. We have no idea. It's entirely possible. So it begs the question, are you hopeful for the future of music, not just country music, but music in general and women's role in it?
I am always hopeful, or I don't think you could press forward. I don't have hope that our industry is going to change.
Yeah.
The people who are the gatekeepers and the stalwarts of the industry are benefiting hugely from excluding women and people of color in country music. And so I don't have hope that will change. What I have hope for is the amazing female artists. When you look at Casey Musgraves, she's in the system. She's signed to a label. She's in the industry. She still can't get arrested on country radio. They will not play her. And so she's kind of had to veer off and expand her audience and her music and her genre. But she's winning album of the year at the Grammys. She's filling stadiums. What I have hope for is women who are not offered a seat at the table of the industry, building their own tables and inviting other women to those tables. And that's what I have hope for.
Putting a nice lacquer on them.
Beautiful lacquer with like a gold leaf in it, you know?
maybe four little soft padded things on the bottom so it doesn't mess up the floor.
Yeah.
That's right. I just did an interview on Courtney Barnett's documentary. And she's running her own race, her own road. I mean, she's come from Tasmania, and it chronicles how much self-doubt she has about her abilities and her role in music. I know.
Wow.
That's what happens, right? So the director gave her a dictaphone machine for 3 years and she talked into it. That's how she got through it all.
Wow.
Do you have any of those issues? He said, knowing the answer.
Yeah, exactly. First of all, fun fact, Courtney actually popped into the studio when I was recording Kingmaker. She happened to be touring New Zealand and she popped in to see Roundhead, Neil Finn's studio where I was recording the album. Right. And so she popped through and I got to have a little chat with her as she kind of then her and her team went through the studio. So that was pretty cool. I like to think I absorbed a little bit of that what's New Zealanders call mana, which is like integrity and power.
I can remember you saying in the last interview we did 2 years ago, excuse me, you were talking about having to sort of reintroduce yourself to audiences in New Zealand who didn't know you from anything, and some of the trials and tribulations that came your way, and some male-dominated rooms that you wanted to get your songs into and your voice and your music. How did it all work out? Has it changed? Have you been able to change anything there?
Yeah, I think that, change is a really slow process, yep. Especially when you're talking about systems that have been in place for decades, if not centuries. And so, but I hold great hope. We had, I think, as we say, when you build your own table, it attracts the right people to you and it kind of bypasses those systems. At this date, I still can't get played on the radio here in New Zealand. Yet at this time of speaking, I have the #1 album in the country for the first time ever. I'm like, which blows me away. Lizzo dropped her album the same day I did. So like, I'm 1, Harry Styles is 2, Lizzo is 3. What the hell is happening? And that's with no commercial radio play. Like, it's insane. And so to me, like I said, I'm not looking, I mean, it would be wonderful if the industry changed and suddenly things were equal, but I'm not waiting for it to change. No. I'm not waiting for them to bestow these opportunities on.
By your very nature, you're changing it. You are a role model. Fine. Be the role model. If that's what you want, fine. This is your 5th album. Briefly, because I'm running out of time. What did you learn from you and your music through the first 4? Because 5 sounds like it's out of the park home run. That's what it sounds like. You taught yourself along the way and you said, all right, this is what I'm going to do here. Did it feel like that?
I love your questions, Terry. You ask stuff nobody else asks. What I think I learned with this one was how much I restricted myself the past few albums. I've always been such a stickler, like, if I can't reproduce this live, it's not going on the album, because I always felt like I'd be disappointing audiences live at my live shows. That was always the live shows were it. Like that was always the ultimate. That was like, this is what it's all for. And suddenly removing, not out of any, fault of my own, but the world removed live shows.
Wow.
And this pandemic removed live shows, and that, COVID giveth and COVID taketh away. But this was, I feel, as much as awful as it's been not being able to work for 2.5 years live, it opened up, it completely removed all those restrictions I'd put on myself to finally go, well, and all the money that I normally spend on touring, I had to record, to put into my music. That's also another restriction, was like, I'm just trying to put out an album in between tours, which cost me and, everything. And I'm always in the red. So all these little steps, due to not being able to tour, led to me being able to create and really invest everything financially, creatively, everything into this album that this is the album that I would always want to make if I could. And it kind of removed all those restrictions I'd put on myself. So that's something that I definitely learned about myself, that I'd kind of given myself these limitations.
And finally, speaking of touring, when will we see you in Canada, for example?
I hope soon. I was just there. I just got back to New Zealand last week, but I only did Ontario, Quebec. It's baby steps right now with touring. It's just logistically almost impossible at the moment. But my hope is that in that next year, I'm going to be able to kind of work my way out west to all you guys and BC.
But I just remember how disappointed you were that you had this album 2 years ago, ready to go, boom, you're ready to go, got great reviews, and they shut the thing down. So you have 2 albums to tour, is what you have.
Exactly.
You got a show to do.
I've got 2 shows to do. So you can bet when I do get to you guys, hopefully next year, that you're going to have a busy night when you come to a show.
You are #1 in Alberta on the CKUA radio network. And it's an astonishing top 30. Like, it's one of everything, of every possible moment of music being made. It's the toughest thing in the world to get to #1, and you made it.
I can't believe it. I only believe it because you're telling me. You wouldn't be that cruel.
And then we'll talk about your documentary. All right. That's coming. So's the book. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Terry.
It's a wonderful album.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure to talk to you, as always.
And my friend Allison Brock, who has the great country show on CKUA called Wide Cut Country. She plays all the country doesn't play. She should be talking to you, and I'm going to try to put the 2 of you together. I'll buy a ticket to watch this unfold. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.